Hey everybody, Dimitri here with Surg Supply, and today I'm excited to do an unboxing video of the 5 kilowatt hour EcoFlow independent system. Now before I get too crazy and opening everything up, I quickly want to preface what this video is about. I'm going to be opening up this kit box by box, exactly how you would receive it if you purchase this from EcoFlow Campervan HQ from us or just about any other supplier. Now to start, this is a 5 kilowatt hour independent system. This can be expanded up to 15 kilowatt hours. It can support a 48 volt AC. I'll really be walking through all those finer details in this video. For those who have noticed, yes, it's a bit of a change of scenery here. The shop is well over 100 degrees and I am not about feeling that California weather. So we are inside for this video. We'll keep it clean. We'll go over all of the items that are included, and I'll also go over some of the items that we have to purchase with each of these kits separately so that we can actually get them to work. Okay, I'm going to start this video by actually opening up all of the cables and kind of making some brief comments on each of them. So without further ado, let's flip this over. We've got this factory seal tab here to show you that it's new. Pop that off and then open up your box. So these two cables are really unique, and I'll quickly show you why they're packaged together. If we pop these open, now one quick note, sorry for the noise in all the bags here, but there's a label on everything in case you don't know. Let's pull this out of the bag, and in case you accidentally discard the packaging, the boxes, fear not, there's always labels on the actual pieces themselves. Now this is an alt-in cable. This is going to be power supply going from your alternator to your EcoFlow unit. Now you'll keep in mind, very important here, you've got a ground lead and a power lead here. We have noticed on many builds, people are connecting these directly to their batteries. I'll go into it later in the video with extra parts needed, but make sure that you're getting the proper fuses and breakers when you're applying this alt-in cable. Again, we'll dive into it in more detail later. Set that aside for now. Next bag. Might as well be messy, right? Rip it right open. There we go. All right, so this cable here is actually your DC out cable. Now this is going to go on the side of your EcoFlow power hub. It's going to plug in by the serial cables, if you know where that is. And these two, you don't have to do anything with these. There's other hardware in the kit that thread these guys into the distribution panel. I'll show you how I do that later with some close-up shots, but these two cables right here are basically accounted for. Let's move on to the big boy here. This is where all the fun happens, and also where all the confusion tends to happen too. So first things first, we'll pull out this number one cable. This is the power hub main AC out cable. This is exactly like your DC out cable that I just showed you. The only difference is obviously it's for 110 volt power. I'll show you how I put that into the distribution panel here in a minute. Moving on, we have this guy here. Check this out. So this is a solar cable. It's got your MC4 fittings already on it. In most fans, the length of this cable is actually more than plenty. I have another item I'll show you later in the video that we marry to this to make the process a little easier, but this is also just a proprietary plug. Snaps right in and you're good to go. The last cable here of the main unit is going to be this guy here. It looks very similar to this previous cable I showed you. These are not to be confused. The main difference is actually that this guy here is AC power going into your EcoFlow, not out. So these leads here, these ends here, they're already stripped. Another thing I'll talk about later in the video on what we used to join to here. This is for your shore power, either under the van or on the side of the van. But without further ado, let's set these aside and move on to maybe the most important cable of the kit. Maybe that's why they put it in a separate box. This guy here is your, drum roll, this is your main battery cable. Now we have a 5 kilowatt hour independent system. If you're gonna get a 15, 10, you're gonna get a different number of cables. Also, if you're gonna do the air conditioning 48 volt cable, it's the same exact fitting as this proprietary battery fitting or plug, and I'm pretty sure it has the same label for battery on here. You just plug that AC into one of the battery ports. So that does it for the main wires. Let's go ahead and open up a few of the smaller ones. So I got the straps for these out. I'll quickly open one of these up to show you guys how it looks, and of course I'm not the most careful guy in the world. So here you go. There you are. So these are the straps with the hooks themselves. These clip into those rails. And while we're at it, let's just open this guy up, slide out the remaining 2 brackets. Sorry for the noise. These are the joining panels for the sides of the battery. So this goes on the front and the back. These guys go on the side, they shoot in, and this completely clamps the battery in place and doesn't let it move anywhere, left, right, up, down, what have you. This is gonna hold your battery firm. Let's move on. Look at this beauty. This is probably my favorite box yet. Let's go ahead and pull this seal off, open it up if we can. And I am going to peel it open in front of you guys here. Okay, so we've got a manual on the top. Definitely worth reading. These guys right here, I'm actually really glad they include these. These are stickers for you to label all of your fuses, both DC and AC. They're extremely handy. There's a visual guide here that kind of talks about where the wires go and how it mounts. Probably too bright for you guys to tell this, but it will come with it. And then last but not least, creme de la creme, your actual distribution panel here. Now, let's pull this out just for the sake of showing you guys a little closer. Let me show you the other components in the box. So this guy right here is made up of technically 3 different layers. The first layer is going to be this cover here that I will carefully pop out. It just snaps right in with these little rubber legs. It's nothing crazy. And then underneath that, let's discard this foam, we have this plate here. This does fasten in with 6 bolts. They are a pain to get in. I will warn you, it's an extremely fine tip kind of thread and very easy to lose the screws. So make sure you have adequate space when putting that in. And then last but not least, the guts of the EcoFlow kit. Let me explain what we're looking at here real quick and I'll try to make some sense of this for you guys. So to start, we have this broken up, and I would break it up honestly by actual voltage or charge type. So this is going to be our AC side. This is our DC side. Now you have 6 different breakers for AC. It looks like the first, it looks actually like they're all 20 amp, which is sufficient for nearly everything you're going to use. Here is the AC lines in. If you recall that cable I showed you earlier in the video with the 3 ready to go fittings with screws, they go in here, 1, 2, 3. Here are our AC line, neutral, and ground actual, there you go, wiring locations. You just flip this lever, shove your wire in, flip it down, that circuit's ready to use. Now, you will notice that there is also a DC in on this side. So we have power and ground. There's an additional ground location here. We don't use that really, we just use these 2. Same kind of system. You will notice that there are actually 12 slots here to put your wiring in, only 6 ground slots. Let's talk about the fuses a little bit. All right, look at this monster. Now, I'm just going to go over each of these plugs real quick. Number 1, you have your alternator in, 60 amp max. These things simply pull off. You can discard them, throw them away, whatever. I like to hang on to them just in case I change things out later. That's going to be one of those cables that came with it. These 2, your PVNs, these are for solar. So you can do 2 different zones of solar. We daisy chain our solar. We don't ever have enough solar to need to, but it's there if you need it. And then those battery slots, battery 1, battery 2, battery 3. Now, our most common setup for nearly all of our EcoFlows is a battery in one and AC in the next, or for people who really need a lot of power, we'll do battery, battery, AC cable. So that air conditioning 48 volt cable will plug directly into this. This unit will register it. Please keep in mind you must update the firmware prior to doing so. So don't try to just plug it in and hope for the best. And moving on, this is actually our AC and this is the shore power. So that's where your shore power is going to plug in. This guy right here is what we refer to as like an emergency 110 outlet. We don't ever use it. I doubt you will either. One really neat use case for this actually is if you're going to mount a Starlink receiver next to the power hub inside your cabinet. This is a great place to plug it in so that you don't have to run any cables, cut anything, or daisy chain things. Now, a very important thing to mention is the side here, and hopefully you get all this. So number 1, to start, we have our grounding stud. This is a floating ground system, so depending on your build, you may not actually even need to use this to ground to your vehicle. Next, moving on, is going to be our AC out. This is the 110 out to the distribution panel I showed you in the previous clip. This is the DC out to the same unit, previous. And then remember that funny little note I mentioned about nothing ever working if you don't plug in serial cables or communication cables in the right place? They very cleverly hide your communication cable ports underneath that sticker. So be sure to peel that off. It doesn't actually matter, I don't think, which one you plug into. The system recognizes the components and you don't really need to worry about plugging it into the wrong place. Now, just to recap, one of these will go to your distribution panel. The other one goes to your screen. You're going to need both plugged in. And while we're on the topic of screens, let me go open that bad boy up. Oh, actually, before we go there, almost got you. I talked to you a little bit earlier about the mounting plates, if you recall these guys for this unit. I mentioned that they screw to the bottom. There are holes here with thread inside. That's where this is going to go. And then I'm going to very delicately flip this guy over, turn it around for you. Here are those hanging cleats I discussed earlier. So this guy here would get mounted somewhere on your wall, and this would hang right on there. So that way you can just kind of hang the system onto the wall of a cabinet, wall of your vehicle, wall of your home, what have you. It's really easy to put on. Just about wraps it up for this guy. Now let's move on to the screen. Okay, last box, I believe. There may be more, but let's get this guy opened up. So, here we go, folks. Voila, another pamphlet of very useful information that I doubt anybody will read. More importantly, your warranty card. Hang on to that. And let's show you what we got cooking in the kitchen. So, this guy's fun. This is going to, you know what, I might as well just open it the Surg Supply way. I'm gonna peel this right off. Here is your EcoFlow screen. Now, I mentioned that quick note about communication cables earlier. The one that plugs into this will go right here. More than likely, just like in this package, the cable will be inside the box. Before I get to that, let's talk a little bit about function. This is all touchscreen. There's really not much you need to do here. There definitely is a outlet right here for power. We never use it. I'm pretty sure it's for firmware updates or troubleshooting. Never seen anybody use it before. And then moving on, we have the mounting. So it comes with a 3M double-sided adhesive strip to mount it to a wall. We typically use 3M for nearly everything, so I definitely would recommend it. The way this guy mounts is you shoot this panel into your wall somewhere in your vehicle, and then it just kind of clips in place. So that way your screen can live on the wall, and you don't really have to worry about taking it on and off. Frankly, we hardly ever use these screens. We're almost always using the mobile app. So you can place this somewhere that's accessible, but more than likely you're not going to be touching it a whole lot. So just keep that in mind. Now, it does come with hardware for you to mount the screen mount properly. And last but not least, at the bottom of this pile is that communications cable. Might as well open this thing up for you guys to see what it looks like, although it's, I think, identical to the other one. It's just your standard comms cable. That's going to plug in underneath. Here, let's, keep in mind, note this nice, convenient little notch here that's meant to tuck the wire away so your wires can be hidden when this thing is mounted. Let's put that out of the way. There is your port to plug in the comms cable. So this goes right in here, and then that goes, if I can even get it plugged in, bear with me. There you go. That goes on the side of your power hub, and it's ready to use. Okay, I'm going to film this quick because I think it'll break my table. This is the battery. It is massive. There, you will note that there is a power button here. We never really use it. It does show, you know, your power level, but that's all in the app anyway. There is a fuse built into the battery up top, and I will try, if I can, to show you the mounting locations here for the bracket that came with the battery mounting. So this is where that bracket would attach with the machine screws that are included. And we'll turn around one more time. Oh boy, goodness gracious. Okay, let's talk about this guy here. This is where your battery plugs in. Word of warning, this is the worst plug ever to remove if you have to remove it. So if you're going to be putting this power system together, get everything plugged in. Make sure your battery's where you want it to live permanently, and then put that plug on here, because trust me, it is tight. There's not a lot of room. You got to do a lot of wiggling to take it out. Just a little pro tip. Get everything else situated, then plug this thing in place. All right, moving on, let's talk about a few items that are not included with your EcoFlow kit that you're absolutely gonna wanna get. The first one's more of a recommendation, not a necessity. This is a Wago fitting. We have so many videos about why these are game changers, why we love to use them. The short answer is that these allow you to put your wires in one end, snap it shut, put the other wire on the other, snap it shut, call it a day. We love them especially because we daisy chain a lot of 110 circuits if we need to. A lot of times, like passenger side, we're adding a plug by the kitchen and then another one in the back. We'll connect them together and we use these triple wagos here to do the job. So if you don't already have them, I would recommend getting these instead of having to deal with crimps and heat shrink and things like that. It's just way easier. Now, let me set these aside. Moving on, I showed you, for instance, the shore power cable, and you saw that those ends were stripped and there was nothing really attached to them. One thing that this does not come with is a shore power plug. Now there's a thousand ways you can do this. There's an awesome plug from Sandy Vans called the Shoreline. There's this from NoCo on Amazon. They basically do the same thing. It's a water resistant, or I guess watertight plug that allows you to plug in your 110 wire, your current, to charge your EcoFlow unit, basically. Now, word of warning, I understand you can charge these things at 60 amps, but I would definitely recommend you never do that. Those wires, although they're thick, I personally and professionally do not think they're thick enough. We never put it above 30 if we absolutely need to. And for safe measure, we always instruct our staff to set your unit to 15. Now, the way to do that's in the app. You just access the settings when you open up the actual charging of power in area, and you can change on a slider how many amps you allow to come into that circuit. Again, we do 15 amps. Most of the breakers in your house are going to be 15 amp anyway. I wouldn't play with fire and mess around with 40, 50, 60 amp charging. It's just not safe practice. But this guy right here is perfectly rated for 15 amps. I think this can actually do up to 20 amps. And we actually like to hide these away. So we'll put these on the underside of the bumpers, the plastic part. We'll drill, I think it's a 2-inch hole saw, pop this in, screw it in. It's out of sight, out of mind. And then we'll cut the ends of this and attach it to the EcoFlow wires. And that definitely is a good way to take care of your shore power. Now moving on, the only other item that's not included is actually this right here. They're very inexpensive, but super worth it. You'll notice this is a solar gland. This goes on the top of the vehicle. We quite literally take a 1-inch hole saw, we deburr it, we rust coat it, and then we'll put a grommet on it, feed these wires through, and lap seal over our solar gland. You can find this on Amazon or just about anywhere. Just search MC4 solar gland. You'll see it with these prongs on it that are ready to go for solar. This one right here actually has stripped ends, hence why we're keeping it around the shop and not using it. Make sure you get one that has MC4 fittings on this end, because what you can do is run your EcoFlow cables up your walls, up your ceiling to the gland, plug this into the gland from one end, and then on the rooftop, you're ready to just plug your solar panels right into this guy. So there's no cutting, stripping, soldering needed. It's just ready to go and it's watertight. Okay, and the only other thing that's not really mentioned is actually in reference to this. Now, this is actually your DC-DC charging coming from your alternator. A lot of people put this straight to the battery. Please do not do that. You'll read in the manual for the EcoFlow, which again, not a lot of people do, but this does require a 100 amp breaker to be on this hotline between your battery and the EcoFlow itself. So if you haven't already picked it up, get yourself a 100 amp breaker. The actual specific type of breaker, you could probably reach out to a professional, ask them. We use one of the breakers with the flip down switches so we can just re-engage it. You can do a slow blow fuse. Really just reach out to an electrician, see what they think is best. For our builds, we use breakers, and it's very convenient. These already have the fittings on them because this is the exact same size as the stud on our breakers. So we'll quite literally just put this on the breaker and fashion another 24-inch wire from the breaker to the battery, and all of that hides underneath the driver's side seat. So that kind of wraps it up for things that you may need after the fact. We did cover everything inside of the kit. Hopefully you guys found this video useful. I hope you enjoyed the unboxing. If you have any questions or comments, or maybe more specific things you want to point out about this kit that you've had an experience with that you want to leave for somebody else below, please do that. In any case, we appreciate you guys watching. There'll be links in the description for any of the items I've referenced in the video, and as always, happy building.